Hi guys, Ronnie here and welcome to the workshop. Today I want to address the topic of Dura Ace Di2 12-speed. I got a lot of questions regarding when will I convert my road bike to this group set, and I was holding off for quite a while for a couple of reasons. First of them was in fact availability. I have pre-ordered a couple of sets and it was fairly limited, so for me, business-wise, it was just more worth it to sell these to customers than to keep one for myself. So that's what I did because demand was quite high. But now the distributor has plenty of stock, so I decided to set one aside for myself. That will not affect things too much. And yeah, I can just sell the old one with having enough spares for the new one. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I was worried about the lack of availability of two things in particular. So the first one was sprint shifters, which I really do like to have on my road bike, and I didn't want to go without them. And I wasn't able to source them for the new group set, so for me that was kind of a deal breaker. And the second one was the lack of available chain rings for the new group set. And this wasn't such a big deal, but it's not optimal either. So yeah, these two compatibility issues. Then thirdly, my gravel bike is equipped with GRX Di2 11-speed and there's no 12-speed option for that yet. And I had wheels that I was sharing between the two. I had a spare road set for the gravel bike, and yeah, I just wanted them to be the same so I can swap around. Now though the situation has changed, so finally I was able to sort the sprint shifters and I was able to get one more set of wheels, so I don't need to share between the two. So that leaves me on with the upgrade of my road bike to 12-speed. So the sprint shifters are right here. They will be installed and I will show you how to do that in a separate video. Now let's talk about the differences between 11 and 12 speed and how do I like it. So let's get cracking. Okay, so here's the bike, my trusty Factor Ostro VAM, which I've been really liking so far. Now it's even better, I dare to say. So let's start with at the front like we always do, and with that, the brake levers. Now there's a couple of changes with this. So for me, the most important one is that they finally have the servo wave technology, which means no longer kind of dead feeling brakes. You get nice little bite and modulation, really a lot better than before, and I think on par with Campagnolo, which for me were the best brakes so far. And yeah, they feel very similar to GRX Di2, so I just love the fact that they've changed this. Secondly, the shape of the hoods is quite a bit different. So they are taller, much meatier, and some people are praising the old version for their lack of girth, but for me, when I try to get into the aero position like that, it's just kind of a more secure hold to have them like this. And also one problem that I had with the old hoods is that I get quite a lot of blistering because of the fairly aggressive and hard rubber that's present on there. Here it's nice, smooth and soft, much more comfortable, I mean. And incidentally, again, closer to what Campy is doing on their group sets. So I just really like that. Then of course they are now wireless, which is great because the most annoying and difficult part of any installation was routing the spaghetti that you need to get things going in an integrated bar like this one, for example, and now that's completely gone. Of course you can still wire up the setup if you really want, and that will increase your battery life, but for me that's not worth the hassle in any way. And with the old one, the situation was even more complicated when you wanted sprint shifters, because the levers only had 2 ports and depending on the configuration, most of the time, unless you use a lot of extra cables, then those two ports were used just to make things run, and there was no space left to install the sprint shifters. Now, with these being wireless and still having 2 ports, you can install 2 pairs of satellite shifters without any issues whatsoever, so that's great. Also, there's, I think, a little bit more reach adjustment, and the blade itself just kind of feels nicer, and yeah, the servo wave certainly makes it a lot better. You still get the hidden button, which I wasn't using too much, to be honest. Now though that there's built-in Di2 compatibility, I've paired it my Wahoo so I can swap around on the pages, the data fields, etc. So yeah, I think all positive things about the levers. The brake hoses and the rest of the hardware is exactly the same. The brake caliper has received a major update. This one is very different, uses a completely different construction method. Now it is one piece instead of 2 bolted halves that, well, bolt together. The good thing though is that the brake pads have remained the same. Here you can see the caliper close up and the bore where the pistons are installed. The main party trick of these calipers is they have a lot more pad clearance, and I can testify to that. It just works. You won't really be able to see it like that, but I can assure you it's a thing of beauty because it's very quick to adjust. Also, the retraction of the pads is, I think, quite a bit better, because even after prolonged braking you don't really get the tick that you used to. That's also partly down to the MT900 rotors, which warp a lot less, if at all, during intense braking, because they have better heat management, so that's also a plus, although neither the caliper or the rotor is exclusive to the new group set. You can use these on the old ones if you want. Going back the bike, back through the bike, I should say, we have the front mech. This is now much smaller than before, which is a good thing in aerodynamics at least, and it's a lot faster. If you just shift it like so, you can notice that the movement itself is much faster, probably because of a stronger motor. So that's one thing. This makes the shifts ridiculously fast, and that's another good thing. One thing that I don't really like that much is that they still have this weird side entry for the wire. It's kind of hard to attach, and then you have this little cover on that. Not very convenient, so I'm not a great fan of that, but that's just a minor thing really. As you can see, my chainrings are still 11 speed, and I would really like to change this to 12 speed now when they come available, because these are quite old. Actually, these are from, I would say, back in 2020 when I got these first, so more than 2 years old. That means they have at least 40,000 kilometers on them. So yeah, probably time to change them. Well, the big ring at least, the small ring hasn't really seen much action. But yeah, I'm looking to change these to the 54-40 combination that they now theoretically offer. You can also notice that I have the chain catcher on there. It's not because there would be anything wrong with the shifting, it's just a precaution that I use on all bikes I have that run a 2x setup on the front. Regarding the adjustment of the front mech, now that's completely electronic and completely done through the eTube app, and it's pretty straightforward actually, but the downside is that it takes now a lot longer because you have to cycle through the app, you have to connect it, pair it, you can't do it without it. And because I do a lot of bikes for my clients, now I have 20 bikes set up in my eTube app. That's a bit inconvenient for me, not for them, because they get the bikes fully adjusted. So yeah, that's a pretty unique problem to me. Then the chain. This is the M9100 chain, which has been inherited from the mountain bike XTR group set. And you can see that the shaping has changed quite a bit, very pronounced chamfers, and that's probably the reason why it works so well with the Hyperglide Plus system now on the Cassette. I've read some speculations that this chain is a lot slower than the 11-speed chain, but actually if you look at zero friction facts, or sorry, zero friction cycling data, then that's not actually the case. So yeah, it's more or less the same within the margin of error of the 11-speed, so I wouldn't worry about that. One thing though that we have lost, that is the option of having a rivet link. So if you want to change the length of your chain, you no longer can, or you need to use two quick links, which I don't know, I don't do that often, but sometimes it will be helpful. So I'm not completely on board with that decision. Then we have the Cassette. As I said, it does have the Hyperglide Plus design, so it means that not only the upshifts are ramped, but also the downshifts. Normally, before, when you were shifting down the Cassette, the chain would just slam down and well, fall onto the next cog. Now it's perfectly guided, so that really helps shifting under load. And I wasn't actually sure that it's possible to improve on the old one because it just felt so good, but after having ridden this, it's just mind-boggling how fast and smooth derailleur shifting can be. And now honestly I don't really know how they will improve the next one, because this feels ridiculously good and better than anything else I've ridden so far. So I was quite surprised, because to be honest, I was a bit, well, skeptical if this would be much better than the old group set, but it is. So if you can get it, then certainly do, you won't be disappointed. Then for the rear mech, this is quite a different shape of parallelogram, very interesting. Also looks very aero, kind of smooth design. The pulley cage is much larger because now it accommodates, as standard, cassettes up to 34 teeth, which is great for people who like to climb a lot and they're not that fit. So you do get a lot of options without needing to change the derailleur, which is great. It still uses the shadow design, so it's tucked right up to the frame, much less chance of damage. It still has the option of a direct mount hanger, which is great. I really love that feature. So yeah, pretty happy with this one. The rear mech you can actually adjust still manually without the eTube app, which is much quicker, and I prefer that, so that's what I do usually. It hosts a lot more functions than before though, so this is also now the junction box and the Bluetooth unit and the charge port, which is located here. One gripe I have about this is that the charging cable is pretty short. It's 1.5 meters, so yeah, because of the location I have my sockets right on the wall, so I can't really move the bike very far when I'm charging it without using an extension. So I would like to see a charging cable of the length of 5 meters. I would say that would make it much more practical, but again, that's a very minor complaint, and perhaps someone will make those in the future. Then the parts you can't really see and are inside the bike. Now these are the two wires, which are much thinner now and have much smaller connecting heads, which is fine because they're easier to thread through the frame. The bad part of that is, at least at the time of recording this video, I'm not aware of any tool that will make the internal routing as easy as with the old ones. Park2 has the amazing routing kit, and they don't have the connecting head for the new cable just yet, so that's a bit awkward. but can be done, you know, because it's pretty simple. At least in the case of this bike, I've got the battery in the seat post. I just take one wire from there to the front mech and from there to the rear mech. That's it. So you can use the old wires that you already have in there to route the new ones, which is what I've done. The battery itself, same capacity, same charging current, etc. So still takes a pretty long time to charge despite the small capacity. Now it has 3 connectors instead of 1, so 2 for the ones that I already mentioned, and 1 in case you're using a time trial bike or a rim brake bike with a wired setup, then the 3rd port is for that. So yeah, this is pretty much all I have to say at this point about this group set. As I said, I was surprised. I was expecting the brakes to be good, and they are, but I didn't expect the shifting to be this much better and improved over 11 speed. So I'm really happy that I went for this. Now it's just the chain rings. I don't have the sprint shifters on there just yet, but they're here and they're tiny. And the same design that they had before with the Dura Ace group set that came 2 generations before this. So it will be much neater to mount, but that will be a separate video, as I said. Okay, so that's all for now about the new group set and my little upgrade. Thanks for tuning in, and if you'd like to see more, of course, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see each other in the next one. Cheers, see you next time.